Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Life Without Hubbard. Also, the V-Team takes a look at an FBI raid, and the speaker's race is on.
They're up! And there's Jimmy Choo-Choo Johnson in the lead, followed by Mark Mutton. It's going to be a close race. I think I need to talk to my pit crew.
Yeah, just what I thought. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics with your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back, Claire. You've been all over the country in the last several weeks, and we're happy to have you back.
Thank you. And I also have a new eyeball so I can see everybody
I
very
know, I'm
well.
so proud.
That's great. That's great.
And thank you. Kudos to UAB and the Callahan Eye Clinic.
Well, we're just glad to have you back. Before we get started today, I must apologize to Representative Mike Jones. Last week's show, we referred to him as one of those who stood by Mike Hubbard at the pep rally. We were meaning Mike Rogers, the U.S. Congressman. We apologize to Mr. Jones for any inconvenience that may have caused him. You know, you sort of get tired, Jack, of talking about Mike Hubbard, but there's a long ways to go before he's going to be out of everybody's life. And what happens after sentencing is on a lot of people's mind. He's going to be sentenced July 8th. And that process will lead to him being at Kilby to be inducted, or what do you call it?
A process.
Processed into the state correction. But what are you hearing out there, and what are you thinking?
Well, each count is no less than 2 and no more than 20 years.
Correct.
Now, the judge can let him serve those concurrently, but I really do think there'll be some jail time. I mean, a message needs to be sent, and you don't want to think of a man who's married with 2, 20 to 16-year-old boys. I mean, that's a shame, but when you do what he's done, there's got to be repercussions for it.
I mean, Claire, it's like Jack says, this really cuts at the fabric of our whole society.
Right. It does. And you know what? He shouldn't be treated than any other citizen, okay? And I feel for the children, I do. But the bottom line is that, like you said, it's the Class B felony. And the judge does have this new sentencing guidelines here in the state of Alabama. He will have some discrepancy, but I think given the pattern and process, the judgments and the rulings we've seen of this judge, I think he's going to do what's right. He always has, even though he's taken his time, and he's going to be methodical about this. And I do think he will do time. I have heard, which I'm sure y'all have as well, is that, the speaker's trying to get, or I should say Mike Hubbard, because he's no longer speaker, trying to get, while they're out on appeal, can he stay in the Lee County jail?
Well, also, when they say process at Kilby, do understand that's not just an afternoon there. We're talking about maybe a couple of weeks of getting processed just there.
And that's a maximum security prison. You got every kind of thug, rapist, everything in there.
Unlike Siegelman and all these who were able, under federal law, to keep appealing and staying out of jail, Alabama law doesn't work that way.
That's correct.
But if the judge were to let him out on bail for his appeal, that would be highly unusual. I think that would send a very wrong message.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this earlier today. We were talking before the show how people have said, well, he didn't commit murder, or he didn't, rob a bank. But, this is not a violent crime like murder. Sentencing is not a deterrent to violent crime, right, Jack? But this could deter people, right, if he gets a lengthy sentence?
I think so, because, it's not like Mike has a rap sheet this long.
Right.
It's, I don't think he has any priors, but...
Well, he does on white collar corruption. They didn't, there was 24. They only got him on 12.
Yeah, 23, and they got him on
23,
12.
I'm sorry, right.
But what he's done is steal the public trust, which is one of the worst things you can do. We as citizens have to trust our government to do the right thing and not be dealing behind our backs. And I mean, for young people coming up and seeing Mike Hubbard do this, what do they think of our system?
Well, in the greed and the power, and I'll say, Jack, as a Republican, it's deplorable to me because it's over 100-something years before we were able to gain back these state offices, and particularly the legislative process, and for them to come in and do what he's done in, 6.5 years, it's going to kill the party. And that is what I can't stand.
And we really need to think about where we are going forward on this thing. But I got to tell you that Maynard Cooper Gale, Ted Haas primarily, wrote a memo about the counts. And I mean, he really just kind of dissed the judge, the jury, the prosecution.
And I know the viewers have missed this, but this and what Mr. Haas did for Maynard Cooper is egregious. I mean, he basically laid out the appeal for Speaker Hubbard, so I don't know if he's getting paid on the legal team or if Maynard Cooper sanctioned this.
But Haas states in this that all of these definitions are very broad. Well, who wrote these laws? Who wrote the laws but the legislator? Who signed off on them but Mike Hubbard himself? They should have thought about the broadness of these when they enacted them to start with.
Well, he didn't like the fact that the law is now defined by a judge and jury. And also, you got to remember, Jim Sumner's testified as an expert witness, and so that's almost the black letter of the law now.
Well, let's face it, Mike Hubbard wrote these laws, basically.
That's right, he and Governor
bragged about the sweeping reform. Unfortunately, they swept him out, but for him. But I mean, that was their mantra for the last 5 years. Is that we in December of 2010 we enacted these toughest in the nation laws.
I think they just didn't think anybody was going to look at it.
Well, I don't think they thought it applied to them.
Well, nothing in the past has ever applied. They've always been above the letter of the law, and that was very obvious in all those emails. But I think
by they we mean the Rileys and the Hubbards.
Right, and it's very interesting because I think in the close internet of Mike Hubbard's family and his colleagues still, they think that he's going to get off on all these charges on appeals and that he's not going anywhere but the Lee County Jail, and that's what they're still thinking. But back to this, and we were talking about passing law, this is the first real test case that we have had that has gone to trial and somebody's been convicted under these ethics laws at this level. So I guess that's where Mr. Haas thought maybe he could try to...
Well, maybe he needs some more clients or something.
Yeah, well, I think it was probably he was trolling the SAC, but maybe this is where he thought maybe he could test the courts and the judges and everybody and the jurists.
We got about 1 minute left, and whoever brought it up, but the Rileys, to me, are damaged. I mean, how do they keep a straight face after what they did in court? How do these businesses depend on them after that, Jack?
Well, let me just say to our viewers, if you don't think Bob Riley ran this state during the whole time Mike Hubbard was Speaker, you haven't.
Sadly mistaken.
Right, you've not seen what we've seen, okay? And there's no reason to expect that a citizen
you
was
can see it
seen
all in those emails that he was pulling Mike Hubbard's strings the whole time.
We got about 20 seconds. I need to get something in here.
Yeah,
there's a new term going around. It's called going all Minda. And it means you're going all Minda Riley. And so when somebody says something to you, you go, but you promised. You told me I could. I mean, it is my daddy. So when you hear anybody whining and complaining, it's going all Minda.
I think that's appropriate.
We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Welcome, Beth.
Hello, good to be here.
We were talking with some GOP members earlier this week who were reminding us about this loyalty oath that they had to make back in 2014. We wrote a story about it. And what it basically boils down to is they had to sign an oath that they would vote however the caucus voted. Whatever vote was taken in caucus had to go to the floor.
Now you're talking about Republican candidates for the House.
Yeah.
Representatives had to sign a loyalty oath.
Every one of them had to sign a loyalty oath. And now they say this is an impediment to them voting their conscience and electing a new speaker. Beth, I tend to agree.
Right, and it's supposed to keep from being able to work with Democrats or being able to, split off and factionalize. Well, the Republicans have a supermajority. They can do what they want. And when it really comes down to it is you have to vote for your district. You don't vote for what the caucus as a whole represents because the needs in, Marengo County are very different than the needs in Madison County. So to say that because the caucus all voted together for this one position, that doesn't mean that you're voting for what's best for your district. It's not what's good for the state.
And this will just continue the cycle. This was something that Mike Hubbard put in place the last time that they elected him speaker in 2014 in order for him to get a block vote so that he would be assured that he would be speaker again, even after he'd been indicted.
And what he did, even after indictment, he went, Jack, to the executive committee of the ALGOP and asked them to insert this in the packets that everyone had to sign. And they really, don't you think they need to reverse this? I mean, this was just to help a crook.
Oh, basically, you're exactly right. Yeah, they need to say this is not worth the paper it's written on. I mean, how can you bind somebody that has their own district, just like Beth said? That's who you represent. You don't represent the incumbent speaker.
I was like, it made Lee County the best represented district in the state, that's for sure.
Well, you go
but
down.
he was working over in the Wiregrass instead of in his
But
district.
you go down there, and I mean, that place has gotten more perks because he was speaker than any other place in the state. I mean, Jay Jones even got a raise when the sheriff over there, who thinks Mike's the most honest man he knows.
He did a mail piece for Mike,
Yeah.
so I need to find that one. I think it's in my office.
Well-
And let's not forget they got a new judicial building that they tried Mike Hubbard in.
Well, I
the
mean,
Mike,
they just
Mike Hubbard Criminal Detention Facility.
There you go.
No, that's the one that he didn't have
worth
named
of new
after himself.
furniture.
And
a
they did-
couple of years ago,
No,
when
you're
every
right
other
about that.
courthouse, they're scrapping to get Xerox paper.
Yeah, he brought the bacon home. But this loyalty pledge, it really needs to go. And if the steering committee wants to send a signal that they're doing the right thing, they're not under Hubbard's thumb, they need to do
This
away with it.
continues the strong arm tactics of Mike Hubbard if it continues.
Well, one GOP member tried to get this on the agenda for August, and it was blocked, Jack. I mean,
Surprise, surprise.
it's just crazy. I mean, we've got to get rid of this good old boy and corruption system that
we've
we've
still
got.
got people saying, well, let's wait and let's see what the appeals do, and let's wait and see what the Supreme Court says. And I don't think some of these people will admit that Mike Hubbard is a convicted felon until they see him in the orange jumpsuit. And even then, orange looks good on him. That's his new color.
It is the new black.
It is the new black.
I want to get on to the next topic, which is who's going to be the next speaker. I mean, the race is on, to quote George Jones, and Pride is coming up the backstretch, I hear, or something like that. I mean, Jack, who are you hearing out there? We know some have named.
Well, Mac McCutcheon from Huntsville is mentioned, Mike Jones from Andalusia. Victor Gaston, of course, dropped out. He's the Speaker Pro Tem.
Bill Poole pulled out as well.
Bill Poole.
Representative Todd is running. So we have
Patricia
a Democrat
Todd
and
is
Senator
Democrat running. Who else?
I think we've heard Mike Jones' name mentioned.
Mike Jones,
yeah, I
I think Will
mentioned it.
Ainsworth's been mentioned.
Will Ainsworth, yes.
David Standridge has been mentioned.
Yeah.
There's
Well-
quite a few hats out there.
I mean, the real concern I hear out of the good government folks is who is the Billy Canary candidate. They're worried because whoever the Billy Canary candidate is the Rileys and will continue this machine politics
Exactly.
that favors no one.
It's the beauty of
but them.
lapdogs. You lose one, you get a new one.
Exactly. But I mean, we don't know because there's so many rumors about each of them.
Yeah, we're not really sure who's tied to what.
You
or
know
what's
what's so
going on
sad
right
about
now.
the whole thing? The tail is still wagging the dog.
You're right.
You got lobbyists making phone calls to elect a speaker. And I'm sorry, the lobbyists don't need to run the State House.
No, they don't.
A few select ones did for the whole tenure of Mike Hubbard, we
of
all know
course.
who
Well,
they
and even
are.
remember back when
Two
Democrats
of
were in
them on
charge,
stand.
you know, Paul Hubbard, rest his soul, good man, but could sit in the gallery and do a thumbs up and a bill
Yeah.
would pass and a thumbs down and a bill would fall. And I generally agreed with a lot of the positions he held. That doesn't make it right. And it's not right for Billy Canary to run it. It's not right for Jimmy Rain to run it. The people need to be able to run their own house here.
And the state needs to rid itself of this Riley machine once and for all, Jack. I mean, these people are wretched. I mean, they are.
They worked so hard to take down the AEA, but the BCA is the new AEA. It's just a new hat on a new person with a new name.
And the way that both Bob and Minda conducted themselves on the witness stand in the Hubbard trial shows what kind of disdain they had.
It was almost like
for
a
the
Carol
for-
Burnett skit on Gone with the Wind.
It really was.
I mean, it was
really,
pitiful.
But it wasn't funny.
No, it really
It
wasn't
really
funny.
wasn't funny, but it showed what kind of disdain
But I
they
mean, if
had
you
for
look
people.
at the Accountability Act, this Section 8 housing bill that went down.
The scholarship
the SGOs.
SGOs.
All that stuff is to benefit and enrich Bob Riley. And he's got a stranglehold on those guys over there, and they need to.
Well, the Canary needs to go. I cannot see how AT&T and Alabama Power and those groups continue to stand behind a guy like Billy Canary. I want to get to this. Last week, the whole Twitterverse, Facebook, everything blew up. There's a big raid. There's a big raid. And
They couldn't figure out who got raided.
there wasn't much of a
Little
raid, really. I mean, a couple of FBI agents went over and picked up a computer or two and some stuff. And we reported that it was because they had a contractor over there that had been hired that had not been vetted and had some trouble in the past. I mean, that's all we've heard.
I don't give a damn. If the FBI walked in my office, I'd run. I would be scared.
I'm jumping out the window with my
I think
computer.
it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
there's a lot
it
of
may be
wishful
so.
thinking going on there. Well, some people said it was the finance department. Some people said it was the governor's office. And finally, it ended up being at finance.
Well,
but there was a...
Yeah, it's always a big deal if the FBI comes calling.
And now the trick is, can the FBI actually get into the system and do anything, or stars still falling all over Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, that's not a raid is like where they,
Look what they did to Milton McGregor.
yeah, that's a
that was
raid.
a raid.
That's
That was a
a raid.
raid.
I am told that 5 tagless black SUVs drove up to the Capitol on Thursday and went their various and sundry ways to
Well,
You sure that
enter
wasn't
some officers.
You sure that wasn't Riley?
It was the Rebecca Mason escort.
It could have been. She may have had an escort up from the Waffle House.
y'all behave.
And the governor every day says, "Waffles, I love that too."
It might be a good place for her to work when this other thing doesn't work out.
Yeah,
She
she
looked good in one
Hey, I
of those
hear
little
they got
ladies.
jump in.
and get a
Yeah.
little bit. I am
Maybe
Becky.
she can make one as low cut as her inaugural gown.
Ooh.
I am Becky. How may I serve you? Okay, we're going to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
It's time to take a road trip.
In Alabama, the road and the restaurants are calling. We've elevated barbecue to an art form, a meat masterpiece. Fine dining your thing? National awards are putting us on the map.
Because everything's fresh and local.
And if you like your dinner with a view, well, you can't beat this. Alabama has a road trip with your name on it.
Which one you gonna take?
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. We were talking about BCA, and I just got to think that they're damaged goods. I mean, look, you got Billy Canary. I mean, he got off of his charge, but he conveniently, forgot everything that ever happened in his life. And then you have, you got Will Brook, who that count stuck. You've got that's twice, and he's still past chair, or was past chair. And you've got so many people involved in there that were just Hubbardites. And I don't see how they survive. I mean, I don't see how Billy Canary survives. And then you've got Seth Hammett and this energy group, Susan. I mean, those are big players with that.
Those are big players. And this energy group is going to draw a lot away from BCA. It's going to draw people like probably Alabama Power, Drummond.
Well, they're already gone. I
So
mean,
that's
they're not gone from Power. I mean, they're not gone from BCA, but this is their group.
They're drawing to this group, and it's a natural fit for them to draw to this group.
I think people, Jack, are just tired of the Billy Canary, Hubbard, Riley regime.
Well, they're still around. That's the sad part. It's like when all of his fellow legislators reelected Mike Hubbard under indictment, and they reelected him overwhelmingly. I have a problem with all that, and I really have a problem with the Rileys trying to run the show.
And as long as BCA is in the picture, that's what's going to happen.
How does it not go to their credibility, Beth? I mean, really? I mean, does everybody just kowtow? I mean, they may be the new AEA, but they're no
Paul Hubbard.
They're no Paul Hubbard.
Nobody will be. I mean, if I were an elected official and I were looking at this, I would be scared to death to have anything to do with them. I mean, I would be putting up my hand saying, y'all stay over there, don't come talk to me. And so I think, as a lobbyist, if you don't have that rapport with the elected officials, you can't do your job. So if these elected officials are smart, they'll put that distance in between them, even when Billy Canary and those people don't want to have the distance.
Well, I've already heard from 2 senators that they are done with the BCA. They don't need to knock on their door. They don't need to invite them to any events. And 2 senators can cause you some real heartburn. You know it?
Mm-hmm. Especially, if it's the right senators.
Yeah. Well, Paul Busman has not shied away from standing up to them. And Paul Busman is a decent human being and a good
And Paul
good man.
Sanford, too.
And they're both well respected
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
among the senators.
There was a reversal of fortune for Green Track. The circuit judge that was over the appeal after they raided Green Track, he said that they fit the definition of their thing is electronic machines, which does not doesn't fall under cornerstone ruling. He said it's totally legal because it's a constitutional amendment. Is Luther going to go over there again? I mean, he's going to appeal this, Beth?
I mean, I'm sure he will, because the whole thing, remember, this was not about whether or not these machines are legal. This is all a big political stunt between these people. So it has nothing to do with whether the machines are actually legal. It has to do with how long we can stretch this out and play with the gambling. We need to just put the whole thing to rest, get a lottery, and get a gambling commission.
Well, I agree. Jack, don't you think right now Luther Strange looks, I mean, if you held the elections today, all he'd have to do is run about 3 or 4 ads and he'd win, right?
Well, he's kind of in the catbird seat. I mean, it's a big victory to get Mike Hubbard. Now, there was a time that I had a thought that, if Luther gets Mike, a lot of Republicans are going to be mad that we get our first speaker in for however many years, and now he's out. But when you look at it, we know how dishonest this guy was. Luther and his team did a yeoman's job. I know he recused, but that team did one heck of a job on that case.
Luther had to stand by them for them to go forward. I mean, and he did. And we understand there's a lot more to come. And Luther Strange has indicated at some of his events that, we're going to clean up government in Alabama. It doesn't matter what party it is. And that sends a great message. I mean, but this thing about going after Green Track and going after Milton McGregor and going after this one and going after that, that's all Riley stuff. That's all old school.
That's all old.
I mean,
that's all old story.
I agree with Beth. We need to have a lottery, put the money in education, move the use tax over to
General fund.
General fund. That's a growth fund for that, and just be done with it.
What the general fund needs is a growth tax.
Yeah.
And go to Macon County and go to Greene County and to see these people need jobs. They need a boost to their economy. And you say what you want to about the bingo or whatever, but Milton provided a boatload of jobs over there.
Macon County, while their representative was worried about who the speaker was going to be.
Right.
Well, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but we've got a little bit of time left, and I want to just say that it's important that those people's votes, what they decided was honored. And you know,
These are
I'm done. I just want to
constitutional
say, let the issue go.
You're
let
not
these
going to
people
stop
alone.
people from gambling. People drive to the borders now to buy lottery tickets. They go to Mississippi to go to the gambling casinos there. It's not going to stop. Why don't we just keep the money at home?
Yeah, well, I'm all for it. I'm just, you know, I'm not a gambling proponent, but I know when something's not fair. And to me, this process has been rigged. It was rigged long ago by the Rileys, and we need to just get over it. Well, Mike Hubbard and the BCA and Bob Riley, they all told us we were the most business-friendly place in the planet. And last year, a survey by Thumbtack, which does some great surveys, they do a business-friendly index. And last year, we had a B with that survey. And this year, we got a D+. And this is surveying local business owners, not the big boxes, the local business. And they say it's not easy to start a business in Alabama, and it's not a friendly place, Jack.
Who wants to come here?
Yeah, right.
Who wants to come to Alabama and open a business when it's a pay-to-play state?
Well, and when you're in a position where, you know, if you're working for a company and you've got health insurance and you've got all these benefits there, we have not made it so that, you know, young entrepreneurs can step out and afford private health care. We've not expanded Medicaid. We've not made it where the same tax benefits that go to these big corporations like ThyssenKrupp are available to small businesses. Now, I'm not saying we should give any small business, you know, millions of dollars, but we should find a way to make it so that the playing field is level. And we've got to start with education. We've got to start with healthcare. We've got to start making it so that families can be stable enough to step out on their own and start their own businesses.
You know, I had a conversation with President Pro Tem Del Marsh after he wasn't President Pro Tem then. He had just won his election, and he and I sat for breakfast at an event, and I said, Senator Marsh, you know, I'm a small business owner. I just saw the state give $12 million to the guy down the road. I can't get a dime or a tax break or anything. I can't get anything.
No, the first thing they do is start taxing you, business privilege tax, the property tax on your computers. I mean, this makes it even more difficult for a startup.
And what Senator Marsh said to me was, Bill, I have a plan for that. We haven't seen it yet, but maybe he'll keep his word and we'll see it before the end of this quadrennium. We're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.